As part of our onboarding for the project, we got to read through the game's pitch deck, which ended up being very helpful in finding the overall audio direction. Two things really stuck out to me when I read the deck. For one, the game's art style is rather cute and charming, and not at all dark medieval fantasy. That was something the dev team really wanted to emphasize. Secondly, and for me most importantly, were these little instrument designs the game's artist Gaz drew on a page about the in-game culture. Whenever I start working on a new project, I really like to establish a palette of sounds and instruments that I can then keep reusing throughout the whole soundtrack. In this case, the visual palette for the instruments was already established. Now I just needed to figure out how they could sound. So, after I spent some time finding the real instruments that could represent our Wildfrost ones, I was finally ready to start writing and arranging the music. You will hear them in context later, but here are some of them in isolation. The Navallophone is a very interesting design, resembling a melodic percussion instrument along the lines of a marimba or a xylophone. To represent it, I ended up with a mixture of different sampled instruments like log drums, balafons, and marimbas. If we're being nitpicky, then the teeth would probably have to be varying sizes for it to create different pitches, but let's just pretend there's some Snowdwellian magic here that makes the instrument sound the way it does. Another group of instruments that are very present throughout the soundtrack, in large part due to their piercing sound, are the so-called hooters and tooters. While the hooters are more traditional flutes and especially warmer sounding ocarinas, the tooters in particular ended up being an instrument I never utilized in my writing before. Represented by the real-world instrument of the zurna or soona, I was actually quite surprised to find a version of this one in many different cultures like ancient Greece, China, Turkey, among many others. You might agree that this instrument has a very unique and piercing sound, which makes it ideal for rousing battle music. A lot of the music in Wildfrost relies on layering a bunch of instruments to create a new and unique sound that cuts through the mix of all the percussion and carries the melodic themes. The theme in the track Luminized Dance is a great example for this kind of layering. As I usually do, this track too started with a rough piano sketch outlining melody and harmony. This helps me work out the core musical ideas first, before jumping into the details of arranging. It is quite easy to get lost in tweaking details across hundreds of individual layers during the composition process. From there, a rhythmic bed is created, giving the music its drive and forward momentum. Then the melodic theme is placed across a few different instrument layers. Most of the soundtrack uses sampled instruments, but I also recorded some real ones that I can play, like ukuleles, shakers, voices, and let's not forget kazoos. So, most of the music implementation in Wildfrost is quite straightforward and mainly relies on looping tracks. But there are a few spots where the music becomes a bit more adaptive. I wanted to make sure that there was some rest before and after fighting. As players enter a battlefield, the music is first in a state of calm. It is not until the first damage is dealt that we transition into the actual battle track. This system is then set up across all our battle locations via our audio middleware Fmod and integrated into the game's engine, Unity.